Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back. We'll call the meeting to order for the afternoon of January 7th. Today's invocation will be delivered by Master Jen Shengxi, who is the abbess of Chung Tai Zen Center in Sunnyvale, and Vice Mayor Jones will tell us more. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to introduce Master Jin Sung, who first came to the Bay Area in 2005, where she served as abbess of Buddha Gate Monastery in Lafayette until 2018. During that time, she led the team of Buddhist nuns and lay practitioners in renovating the monastery and inspired students by offering spiritual talks and meditation classes in English and Chinese. Master Jen Sung's life mission is to teach the truths of Buddhism and guide sentient beings to explore the potential of their pure nature. After a one-year sabbatical, Master Jen Sung is back with us in the Bay Area, where she will continue her service at this time as the abbess of the Chung Tai Zen Center of Sunnyvale.
Okay, Mayor and Vice Mayor and all respectful officials, very nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me, and Happy New Year. And Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, so today I'm here to present the gifts from Buddha's wisdom and compassion. That is BMW, but it's not a car. So the B is for blessing, and M is for meditation, and W is for wisdom. So blessing is from our good deeds. We would like to help people, and based on our moral values, we do the good karma. So the blessings come out from our good deeds. And the meditation, and everyone, we do have a concentrated, pure mind. But this mind is very easy to become scattered, distracted. So we do need a meditation to calm down our mind, to restore our pure mind. And that is actually our nature, everyone's pure nature. And wisdom, we do have the original pure wisdom, but also it needs to be cultivated. So we do have some, out of a Buddha's wisdom, there's a general shared values among all religions. It is the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. And it's pretty like the principle of causality in Buddhism, karmas. So karma means the action out, reaction coming back. So whatever we do, people, good karma, good or bad, sooner or later it will just come back to us. So there's a saying in Buddhist teachings, watch out our thoughts. Our thoughts might become our words, and watch out our words. Our words can become our actions, and watch out our actions. Our actions can become our habits, and watch out our habits. Our habits can become our characteristics, and watch out our characteristics. Our characteristics can become our personality, and watch out our personality. Our personality can become our destiny. So if we are able to create a promising future by the cultivation of mindfulness, so being mindful of our mind, make sure we always have a good thoughts, positive thoughts, right thoughts, pure thoughts, and we want to do the good deeds to benefit others, be more altruistic, be more selfless, be more beneficial. We're able to create a peaceful world all together. So at last, I would like to do the dedication. This is always the common verse. We do the dedication at the monastery. May the merits of our deeds reach every part of the world. May all sentient beings, large and small, attain a perfect enlightenment, liberate from all suffering. Amitabha, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, Master. All right, now let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
All right, we have no ceremonial items this afternoon. May well be a brief meeting. We'll see about that. It's a sold-out crowd here, of course. Orders of the day. Does anyone on the council have any changes to the printed agenda? I should note 6.1 requires determination by 2/3 vote of the members of the council present at the meeting, or a unanimous vote of those members present if there's a need to take immediate action. I did want to offer one suggestion on orders of the day with regard to item 6.1, and Ed will tell me if this is appropriate or not. I would like to have us entertain the item and then defer the item so that we can have staff input on this issue about VTA and allocation, and obviously give the community some time as well. But I'm told we can't defer the item to a future council meeting unless we actually get past the first vote to hear the item. Is that right,
Correct.
Ed?
It's a procedural issue that may not make sense, but the way it works is there is no item to discuss unless the council puts it on the agenda because it didn't go through the process of being placed on the agenda through the Rules Committee. So today there is nothing on there to discuss. The council has the authority to put an item on the council today by having 8 members vote in the affirmative to put it on the agenda. Now, and then when it's on the agenda, then you can defer it or take whatever action you want. So I know it sounds cumbersome, but until you have an item on the agenda, you can't do anything with that item. If you don't get the 8, you don't have an item on the agenda and you can't do anything.
The other option is then it goes back through the Rules Committee. And so I would just suggest, rather than hearing the item 6.1, which is the letter to VTA regarding funding, reallocating funding on Measure B, that we would entertain the item and then defer it for several weeks until staff can get us a memo, and obviously the community can have an opportunity to respond, and we could maybe have a more deliberative process.
So that would take 2 actions. So the first action is getting 8 members of the council to vote to put the item on the agenda. If you get your 8, then you take the action, whatever action that is, on the item.
Okay. So we would simply need an affirmative vote on orders of the day since it's there now. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
For both of those actions.
Okay. Councilmember Camus.
So if I make a motion to accept the orders of the day, it takes care of both of the actions?
No.
It takes care of one of the actions.
Okay.
And then you take a second action to defer it on orders of the day.
All right, then I'll make the motion. Sorry about the confusion. It was the rules in lieu meeting, and we would have put it through the regular process had there not been a rules in lieu meeting.
Yeah, so for those who are watching at home, there was an item that was put on this agenda through Rules in Lieu, which is an unusual process, but because we didn't actually have a Rules Committee hearing, it couldn't go through the normal process. And so I think everyone, well, I won't suggest what anyone else is thinking, but I think everyone would like to see this heard at some point, and so we can fully discuss this in a public way. Okay. All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any comment? I don't have any cards, do I? Okay. All right, anybody in the public like to speak? Just fill out a yellow card. Otherwise, we will come back to 6.1 on the agenda. Okay.
I have a card to speak on 6.1.
Yeah, that's okay.
Not on the agenda yet.
We'll take it later. Yeah. Okay. We're getting there. Okay, let's vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Crosco? Could you put on the mic? There you go.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to clarify. I'm not in London.
Oh,
I'm
are you
here.
supposed to be in London today?
I'm
Yes,
here.
yes, the agenda does indicate that one of the council members, Councilwoman Carrasco, will be remotely participating, but as we can see, she's physically here and not.
I'm not a figment of your imagination.
Force Ghost.
I'm here.
Force Ghost.
Well, I know the Queen Mama is very disappointed, but we're happy
She
to have
is,
you here
she
in
is.
person. Yeah.
But it's noted here on the agenda, so I just wanted to make sure that, for the record, y'all, I'm here.
All right. Duly noted if we vote yes. All right, let's vote. All right. We voted yes. She's here. Okay. We're on to the closed session report.
No, now you need a motion to
Oh.
either defer it, or if you don't get the vote to defer it, then you actually hear it as 6.1.
Okay. So, Councilman Campos, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would. I'd be happy to defer it. Also, VTA did defer it, so I'm okay with it being deferred. A reason why we wanted to put it out so early was because they were voting on it on January 9th. They're no longer voting on it on January 9th. They're voting it on in their second week of February meeting. So I make a motion to defer till you put 14th, but if you want to make it 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, I'm okay with.
Whatever staff is able to provide a memo for.
Yeah, I think we would be looking at the 28th. There is no meeting on the 21st, so we'll target the 28th.
Okay.
Then I'll make the motion for the 28th.
Okay. Now, I know we do have cards here. Is that right? I see Ms. Mallon. Would you like to speak? Yeah. Come on down and speak. Henry, if you could hand me the cards. Come on down if you've submitted a card, and we'll make it official in a second.
The actual discussion is just simply to whether or not to defer the item,
That's right.
not on the merits of the item.
Yes. So we invite public comment on the question of whether this item should be deferred. So, Mr. Cameron, did you want to speak on that issue? Yes, please. Okay.
I have a second from Councilmember Davis.
Yes, that's what I heard as well. Thank you.
So I really appreciate extending this time frame. I've read a number of different write-ups from Councilman Clements and others, and I appreciate the content. Some of us have a different view, and we look forward to that conversation and discussion. So again, thank you very much for allowing a reasonable amount of time for this process to really develop from all viewpoints. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mallon?
Hi, my name is Monica Mallon. I'm a student at San Jose State, and I live in Cambrian. And I also really want to thank the mayor for the memo to defer this item. I really think that it's way too premature to take a stance on this since VTA hasn't discussed this item. And I also really just want to encourage all of you to have an open mind about this, just because of the significant impact that the transportation sector does have on greenhouse gas emissions in San Jose. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on the motion from Councilmember Camus, let's vote. Seconded from Councilmember Davis. Okay, this item is deferred then to the 28th. Now we're moving on to the consent calendar. Oh no, we're going to the closed session report, Ed. Sorry.
The council met in closed session. There is no report.
All right, on the consent calendar, are there any items anyone would like to pull? Councilmember Davis. 2.6. All right. Any other items? We'll entertain a motion on consent. This is for the remaining items. Let's vote. Item 2.6 is the report from the council liaison to the retirement boards, and that's you, Councilmember Davis.
Yes, and my notes just, okay. So the Federated Retirement Board met on December 19th, and shoot. My Granicus just closed with my notes. One moment.
I know that feeling.
Okay, here it is. So the board accepted the June 30th, 2019 actuarial valuation report for the pension plan. So that means that they decided to keep the discount rate at 6.75%. And then they also, as part of that report, estimated that our pension contributions for the upcoming fiscal year will be about $191 million. So that increases by about $11.4 million from our current fiscal year contribution, and that's just for federated pension. And then the board also looked a little bit at the, they adopted the assumptions for OPEB, the other post-employment benefits, and those assumptions are basically the same, so we'll get the draft valuations for OPEB in the January meeting. And I think, I did want to also mention that there is a new chair of the Federated Retirement Board, so Matt Lesh has left the board, and the new chair is Jay Castellano. The vice chair is Anurag Chandra now.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Just a question about the $191 million contribution. Is that both pension and OPEB?
No, that is just for pension because the OPEB contribution has not been, the valuation hasn't come out yet. So the OPEB lags by a month. So I'll know that towards the end of the month.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's from all funds. That's not just general fund, right?
That's correct. That's from all funds.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Foley? Oh,
I have
Councilmember
a
Foley.
report from the Police and Fire Retirement Board. Very, very similar. The board accepted the June 30th, 2019 actuarial valuation for the pension plan, which kept the discount rate at 6.75, and calculated the city pension contributions for the upcoming fiscal year 2021 to be $205,963,000, an increase of about $19 million from the current 2019-2020 fiscal year. City contributions are increased by $7,097,000 from last year's estimate. So in the coming year, that will be a bigger unfunded liability hit for the city. In addition, the board adjusted some of the remaining amortization periods and adopted a 2.5% amortization payment increase rate to smooth the pattern of future contributions, which will produce a higher contribution in fiscal years 2028 through 2032, but allow for lower contributions in the short term. The pension board, too, had a new president or a new chair appointed, Andrew Gardinier. I know I'm mispronouncing your name, Andrew, and I'm sorry. And that's it from
Thank you.
Police and Fire.
And thank you, Councilmember Foley. And that was, did you say they lengthened the amortization rate? The amortization period?
Yes.
Okay. What's the period, do you know?
No.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Probably 20 years, I'm guessing, but okay. Great. And so thank you for clarifying. So the $19 million additional contribution, of that $7 million will come from the city. The rest will come from the employees. Is that right?
No, I don't believe that's correct.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask you a little bit offline. I was
Thank
just
you.
trying to do the math for our upcoming budget to see what exactly we got coming. Well,
Happy to meet with you and discuss what I
that'd
have.
be great.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
We have a meeting on Thursday, too.
Fabulous. Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Foley, second, Councilmember Davis. Any other questions or comments? Let's vote. All right, on to the report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report today.
On to item 4.1, which is council priority number 7, review amnesty program. Rosalind and team are here. Welcome. While they're making their way down, just note, I submitted a memo belatedly here today on January 7th that has some recommendations generally aligned with staff recommendation with additional recommendation relating to the waiver of fees and the business tax for those who meet the financial hardship.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Rosalind Huey, Director of the Department of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. With me this afternoon is Rachel Roberts, Deputy Director over Code Enforcement, and James Sung, Deputy Director over the Building Division. So we are glad to be before you today regarding the proposed ADU amnesty program. And just by way of background, the council first adopted as a priority ADUs and garage conversions back in 2017. In June of 2018, we got direction to explore an amnesty program. And then last September, we brought ideas regarding the program and got council recommendation along with further items directed to be looked at. So this slide shows the major components that we are recommending for the amnesty program. As we thought about the program elements, The approach we took really did focus around two major goals for the program. I think first and foremost, we want to encourage safer housing for all of our residents throughout the city. And then secondly, we really do see this as part of the city's housing strategy. The housing crisis is driving all of us to really identify ways of bringing in more units into the pipeline. And we think that bringing unpermitted ADUs into compliance helps us expand the legal housing stock throughout the city. So first, we are recommending a 2-year program. As we did research and looked at other jurisdictions, we found that most jurisdictions had programs from 1 to 3 years. So we're actually recommending a 2-year program. Obviously, council could decide to extend that program should it desire to. Next, while ADUs will not have to comply with the current building code, they will have to comply to the building code for which the unit was built or as close to the year built as possible, and that will be determined by the city's building official. So bringing the unit to code actually qualifies it to become a legal unit. Next, regarding the self-assessment checklist, we have developed this tool, and we see it as a tool that the homeowner can use to actually use as a guideline for amnesty eligibility, as well as determining potential costs before they actually make a firm commitment to move forward in the program. And the checklist will also detail the health and safety requirements for the unit. Regarding the third-party consultant, we are recommending that we do, in fact, contract with the third-party consultant to work with our applicants throughout the checklist process as well as the pre-application phase. This consultant will provide the plan review as well as the inspection for all of the units. And I also want to note that the inspection for these units would be limited to the ADU itself and not the primary home. And as we've previously shared, if there are any health and safety violations that are determined, those would need to be addressed before the unit could be permitted. Staff is also recommending waiving the unpermitted construction penalty fee, which is equivalent to the actual permit fee. And we're hoping that this obviously will help encourage more people to consider the program. And regarding the financial hardship exemption, so the city currently has a financial hardship exemption to waive business taxes. And the threshold for this exemption is $25,000 in annual business income. So this equates to a little over $2,000 per month. So if owners who charge approximately $2,000 a month or less for an ADU unit will actually qualify for this exemption. So we are recommending that our customers actually go through this process in order to have the business tax waived. Next, we just wanted to provide some highlights from the items that we received back in September. So you asked us to look at several items and take them actually to the ad hoc committee. And so we just wanted to present them to you today as well. So it just previously talked about waiving the business tax, and so we are recommending that. Regarding reducing or waiving permit and impact fees, Senate Bill 13, which actually went into effect January 1st of this year, actually waives the impact fees for ADUs that are less than 750 square feet. And for those units that are over 750 square feet, the fee is proportionate to the square footage of the primary home. Thank you, Rachel. Regarding permitting fees and the cost for our ADU amnesty customers, we've come up with an estimated fee, and again, this is based upon ADU applications that we take in currently. So that estimated fee includes plan review, permitting, an inspection as well, and that fee amount is roughly $5,900 per ADU. So you see, if you multiply that by a certain number of applications, you see the cost that would be associated with waiving those permit application fees. Next, regarding third-party inspection, we mentioned that earlier, and also just wanted to note, as I stated, that the scope of the inspection would be limited to the ADU only. Obviously, if there are any life and safety issues, they would have to be addressed. We were asked to come up with a list of the most significant health and safety hazards, and so we've come up with this list, and this list will also be included in the checklist for our residents and homeowners. So obviously, hazardous wiring, structural hazards, inadequate fire protections or exits, lack of sanitary water and gas appliances and sleeping rooms, all of those would be considered as pretty serious health and safety violations, and we would want those to be addressed before the unit is permitted. We were asked to take a look at potential resources, loans, grants that might be provided by the state, federal, or nonprofit programs. And as we did our research, unfortunately, we didn't find any existing loan or grant programs for ADU amnesty. However, AB 671, which is now in effect, actually requires the State Housing and Community Development Department to develop a list of state grants and financial incentives for ADUs by the end of this calendar year. So we should be hearing from HCD soon about what those incentives might be. I previously mentioned the self-assessment checklist that we have developed and will be part of the program. And then lastly, Council asked us to take a look at zoning ordinance changes to further relax the requirements for ADUs, as well as make sure that the city is in compliance with all of the new state laws that have been put and have come into effect. So you see here this list of key major items, and Council actually took action and approved these ordinance changes on December 17th of last year. And then lastly, in terms of program implementation, we are proposing to launch the amnesty program on January 21st. We did want to note, as a result of the new state housing bills, AB 881 and AB 68, actually provide that property owners can request a 5-year stay of enforcement of building standard violations, and that cities would have to grant that request pending there are no health or safety issues. So we wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that. And then lastly, we just put together this, this diagram to help our potential amnesty customers, help them understand what the process would entail. So we would start off with the self-assessment checklist. That's going to be something simple that each customer would be able to fill out on their own. We mentioned that we would be bringing on a third-party consultant who would serve as a primary contact and actually help the customer throughout the entire process. So throughout the checklist, the pre-application inspection, this third-party consultant would actually do the plan review and then also do the final inspection for the unit. And with that, that concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Rosalind and Rachel and James, for all your work on this effort. I know this is not an easy one, so thank you for pushing through. I've submitted some additional recommendations as well. I hope my colleagues will consider. Questions and comments? Councilmember Foley?
Thank you. This is really exciting to see the final piece of the ADU program come to fruition, should we choose to adopt these the amnesty program. There are many of these non-conforming ADU units out there. I don't know if we have a handle on how many are out there. I suppose we will once we start getting the applications in. So I'd like to move the mayor's memo. Thank you. and just make a couple comments and ask some questions. ADUs are the low-hanging fruit on creating affordable housing in San Jose. I've been saying that all last year, and I'm not the only one saying that. It's an easy opportunity for us to build additional housing and for folks to create housing opportunities for aging people who are aging in place, for millennials who need a cheaper place to live, for an ability for a homeowner to earn an additional income. So this just takes units that are already being rented and making sure that they conform to the legal building code at that time. So I really appreciate what thought went into that. I am mindful, though, that we are victims of our own success in that our ally, which we created several months ago, is overworked, and our ADU Tuesdays are very busy with people trying to get their plans through. So where do we stand on hiring more staff, and what will this amnesty program do to our staff needs?
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, our ADU program is very, very popular, and we have lots of customers coming through our doors every day wanting to get their permits. So you're correct. Our current ADU ally, Sarah Scholl, has a very, very heavy plate. We are going to be requesting during the FY 2020-21 budget new positions to help us with the program. So we're going to be requesting an additional ADU ally, and we're going to be also requesting a number of other staff to help through the plan review and inspection process. So we're going to be asking for new associate engineers, permit specialists, and James, help me out if there are any other inspectors, of course. So we'll be making that proposal in this next year's budget.
Thank you. In the interim, though, how will you be managing that in your department?
So in the interim, what we think is going to be very helpful for particularly our amnesty customers, we're going to be proposing a mid-year budget request to actually add what we're going to call an amnesty coordinator. And this could be a position, or the services could also be provided through the third-party consultant. We actually currently have contracts with private entities to provide these services. So we think that we can get this on board during the mid-year.
Are those third-party, thank you, are those third-party service providers, is that a list that we give to homeowners applying for an ADU, or we work through the third-party?
We would work through, so we would choose the firm and then actually select the actual person.
Okay, so we've already vetted their
Correct.
effectiveness. Okay, thank you. I'm really excited to see this come forward. I know there are many non-conforming ADU units out there, and this will make them safer for individuals to be living in. And I know this is an issue of non-conforming units all over the city of San Jose, more so in certain areas. So, but this will bring them out of the shadows and hopefully incentivize them to create conforming units. So thank you for bringing that through.
Thank you. Councilmember Camus?
Thank you, and I also want to thank staff. I think this has been a long process, I guess, since 2017, and I really also want to thank. I got a lot of thanks from some of the constituents on how they're being handled on their submission of new units. So I want to thank staff for working so hard, especially Sarah and staff there. And I'm supportive of the mayor's memo. I just want to make sure that we are not waiving at this time fees for the ADUs that are above 750 square feet.
The recommendation does not distinguish in the memo.
Okay.
And the reason why not is they'd already be waived under 750.
Yeah, no, under 750, I'm fine with. Yeah, over
That's state law.
750, I think we should keep the fees the same. They're not necessarily, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll just explain, at least in my memo, and I'll let the maker of the motion explain if she'd like to change it or otherwise. But in my memo, I didn't distinguish because if we're going to have an amnesty program, the idea is to make it simple.
Yeah.
And to the extent that we draw a lot of lines and, well, if you have this much or that much, especially since they're already existing units, it's a little more challenging, I think, for folks to try to adjust the square footage once it's already built. But
So it does waive it for the 750.
Yes, if the council approves the budgetary allocation, which is basically part of the motion, which is that we come back to council for the funding reserve for the program for the waiver. So how much money gets allocated and all that is still up to council. I'm sorry, Councilmember Foley, did you want to weigh in?
Well, I just want to comment that the waiver is if they meet the financial exemption. It's not someone who makes a lot of money beyond the financial exemption and it's waived. It's still, they have to meet the financial exemption in order to qualify.
So somebody who's building a 1,200-foot ADU in Almaden Valley, I don't necessarily want them to have their fees waived in that.
No, this doesn't affect them.
That's the point I was getting at.
Right.
So, okay, I just want to make sure. I do want to see some fees go into our parks and, and such. I had one more question on AB 670, since you brought up all these lists of legislation that is taken in effect by the state legislature to streamline ADUs. And I know that AB 670 was one of those ones that allows owners of homes that have HOAs, the HOAs can no longer prevent ADUs from being built. But do you see any potential legal issues? Because all these homes actually have CC&Rs, right? And if the CC&Rs specifically say no ADUs, then does the state law supersede the, maybe it's a good one to counsel.
Yes, what it would say is that the bill makes the restriction unenforceable and would allow for ADU development in these areas if it was found to be unreasonable. And what that is being interpreted to mean is if it effectively prohibits the construction of an ADU, then it is unreasonable. So that CC&R would not be enforceable.
Okay, so people who live in HOAs and who want to do a ADU, because I have a house in an HOA, so I could put one, even though I know my CC&Rs actually say you cannot have an ADU, I can go ahead and do one anyway.
That's what the law seems to imply, and the HOA would have to try to stop you to the extent they believe it is reasonable for you not to have one.
All right. Interesting. Okay. That was the end of my questions. Thank you.
Question is, when you get prosecuted for violating, will Ed then represent you? I don't know.
I'm just telling you what it says. I'm not telling you we're going to enforce any of those.
Or protect us if we decide to go with ADU.
Councilmember Spartan?
I just had a quick question. So the less than $2,000 a month exemption that will to the business tax, that will still stay, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Arenas?
Thank you. I'm also very happy to see this come to fruition. I voted for this ADU priority. I think it was Councilmember Carrasco that you had placed on a priority list at that time, and so here we are finally having this come to play, and so it's really exciting to see, and how it's going to really change some of the folks out in the, I am going to say primarily in the east side, but not exclusive to the east side. I, for one, grew up in a single-family detached home my parents owned, but in order to afford it, they also converted their garage into a separate living quarters. And I think first under not permitted, but they soon learned that they needed to have it permitted and actually had that done. So I know how important it is for somebody to have additional income source, but it also adds to the housing stock. And people are doing this anyways, where they're doubling up. And so I love the idea that we are helping manage some of that privacy and legitimizing some of these additional housing options for our families. I have one question about the third-party inspectors. Well, overall, the way that we're going to campaign this, or we're going to launch it off, a lot of folks may understand some of the nuance of the rules, but as you can see, we're even asking questions about this, so I can only expect that our residents will have a lot more than we have as well. So one of the issues that I would see happening is that among folks who might be very covertly doing this and don't want anybody talking to them, or they don't want to talk to anybody, and much less code inspectors. That's why I'm really glad we have these third-party inspectors, just like San Mateo County. But we have to kind of make an example of somebody. And, the word of mouth among the community is really important. So if we help out one particular household, one particular house or a resident who's willing to come forward and, have a write-up in the local news and be part of a pamphlet, or just kind of be the face of what this could, this amnesty program could translate to. I think that would speak volumes in order to make this a lot more credible and successful, right? Because ultimately we want more folks coming into the amnesty program, and I can see, even though might be some the rules may not be clear, and so I can see somebody not coming forward. They might just see that inspector as an inspector. It doesn't matter whether it's a third party. They may not care what a third party is. I just think we really need to be very blunt about the rules and say, they will not write up any code violations, versus just saying it's a third party inspector, and leaving it at that, and having it just understood that there's not going to be any code violations written up. So this just goes to the next phase, which I'm really excited about this phase, but the next phase is how do we launch it, and how do we make it really work for our community? And I can see some of our community being very hesitant about the program, but I'd like for them to come forward, and I think that we can have somebody modeling how this could work for them in their own home, and hopefully we can find that in all the folks who are in the ADU Tuesdays coming through. So that's one feedback. And my second comment would be a question, actually, is how many folks from that ADU Tuesdays that we're getting a lot of people, and we're possibly going to have some staff impact because of even with this. What is that percentage? I don't know if you know the breakdown, but from the folks who are coming to ADU Tuesdays, or just in general, how many of those are actually garage conversions, and how many of those are just separate ADUs?
I'm sorry, Councilmember, but I don't have a clear data on how many garage conversions that we are having. But I could mention that we are getting a lot of new detached ADUs. That's more popular these days, rather than a garage conversion. But also we are getting quite a bit of garage conversion as well. But we don't have accurate data at this point.
Yeah, I would suspect that much. I think ADUs are folks who probably have some equity in their home. They're not willing to sell it because it just doesn't make sense for them in this economy to find something else. But they're willing to get some equity out, or have whatever savings they have to actually build an ADU. And so I think that because of that, I think our garage conversions are not that I'm trying to promote folks to do this on their own. I want them to get it permitted. I want them to have that support, that technical support, to understand the process and get the benefits of any fee waivers. And so I think the ADUs are speaking to the folks who actually have the additional income. And I want to make sure that we have options in all parts of San Jose, even those folks who may not have additional income to set up a detached ADU, but may have the resources for just the garage conversion. So I'm wondering what we're doing to balance that out.
So Councilmember, we will be doing proactive outreach to our existing customers in code enforcement where we do see a larger number or a larger percentage of garage conversions. So we will be doing outreach to advise them of this new opportunity that they have to bring their units into compliance. So we'll be sure to to be reaching out to those folks as well.
Great. And are you equally promoting, I guess, garage conversions as an option as you are ADUs? I see you. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. I just think that it's more plausible for our families, more reasonable for our families to actually use as an option if they're not already doing that, than have an ADU. And we've seen some of those costs, which are really impressive. And so I'm happy that we have this opportunity to waive some fees for those folks to ease that investment. Okay, so I look forward to that outreach portion of it, and please keep in mind that our community might be very hesitant and not confiding in us completely, because they may think that we're going to just turn around and write them up with a lot of violations, code enforcement violations. So I'd love to see the outreach plan for that, just to make sure that we have true engagement from those amnesty programs.
I appreciate Councilmember Morales' point. I just want one bit of clarification, because I think the intention clearly is we want to avoid the gotcha, but we cannot say comprehensively that we're going to not cite for all code violations, right? There are clearly health and safety violations that we will be citing for. Those are roughly in the 5 categories that are described in the report.
Yes,
Is that right?
that's correct. And we'll be sure to make that clear in the checklist, so our potential customers will know upfront, like, this is the expectation and these are the list of life safety issues that must be addressed before the unit can be permitted.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Carrasco?
Mayor, can I?
Oh, yes,
for that?
Councilmember Reyes.
So yes, thank you for mentioning that. I did see the checklist, and I think making sure that we very much say that in that checklist. I don't know that I read it that way, but when you have questions, you want to make sure that we say, if you exempt these things, we will not, right, be able to write you up. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Diep? Councilor Diep.
Thank you, staff. I appreciate the program, and of course, I'll be supporting it. I have kind of adjacent questions. I'm not sure if you can answer, but I'll ask you anyway. One staff member of mine raised an issue, and I don't see why we would do this, but when we're giving the amnesty to the current landowner, does that kind of make it legal even for the next person who purchases the site? So it's not like the next person who buys it has to come in and bring it to code or anything?
Yes, under SB 1226, by permitting the unit in accordance with the year built, it does in fact make it a legally permitted unit. So they would have a permit on record just like any other new construction would.
Okay, great. And the other question is, I guess, some of the feedback or criticism that I've heard just on social media when I'm sharing about this is, yeah, but it'll increase the property values and our taxes will go sky high and all that. So I guess my question is more around Prop 13. And again, I'm not sure that planning can answer, but I'm going to just put it out there. If the regime of Prop 13 is, our property values taxes only increase about 1 or 2% a year annually, a house can jump in value like markedly, and it still would, the property tax increase would be limited. So by adding an ADU unit in the back, are we actually, I know we're increasing the value of the home, but are we affecting taxes that much to the extent that would become something that people should be afraid of? I don't think so, but I'm looking at the realtor on the council and I'm hearing.
A realtor who you asking a tax question.
Okay.
So I may defer to the attorney, but the ADU will trigger a reassessment of the ADU, but not of the unit of the house itself. Right. And the house itself is protected under Prop 13 with a 2% increase. So the ADU will be reassessed and added to the property's value.
Okay.
Am I on target with
yes,
that?
that's correct. The ADU will be reassessed, not the house.
Okay. Yeah, so, okay, all right. I just wanted to get that out there because some people are commenting on social media, and I just wanted to get clarity on that. But no, this is great work, and I agree with all the comments. We do need more housing, and this is, you know, a kind of a one way to get more of it out there, and there's more to do, but this is a great step forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carrasco?
Thank you, and thank you for those extra minutes to pull myself together. Very quickly, Ralston, I just wanted to thank you for all of the work that you're doing. I know that when this really started a few years ago, anything that is treading on unknown ground is always takes a lot of research and you know, pushing your entire team, you know, to new levels of understanding. So I really appreciate it. I know that in my district there's a lot of little makeshift homes that we need to make sure that people are going to be safe and that we don't hear of some sort of a tragedy. And so we'll make sure that we get the word out as soon as you get us some sort of you know, some wording that we can put out there, both in Spanish and English. I just did a very brief interview with Andres, who's just right behind you. And one of the questions that was brought up that I hadn't thought about, and really we always need to think about this when we're talking about our communities that are more challenged, is the question of documentation and whether those communities you know, live with that constant fear, especially with what's going on at the national level. So I think making sure that we put that out there as well, that we're still not cooperating with ICE, we're not cooperating with any immigration enforcement department when we gather any sort of information, and this won't be held against them. I always want to make sure that we put that out there. So I think that that's just a point to be made. Other than that, thank you again for making sure that our communities are safe, but also that folks either can make their mortgage or just simply put that people can stay in San Jose where they've learned to love their city and they've helped build their city. So thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Ed?
My job is to try to get you to understand the process and procedure here. So the council can't just waive fees and sort of just on its own. It has to go through a process. So my understanding is that we want this program to start in January sometime. So the way you can waive fees is two ways. You can amend an ordinance that allows for a waiver of certain fees that are usually imposed on certain developments. Or a much quicker way, which you know will sort of result in the same thing, is for you to adopt a fee resolution that sets the fees on certain developments or projects at zero. Now that can be done by next week, by setting a fee at zero for certain permit fees or certain fees. That will allow the process to start sooner. We should ultimately at some point do the ordinance change, but that, as you all know, takes 2 readings and then doesn't become effective for another 30 days. I think it will get the council to the same place, but one gets you there as soon as next week. The other one would not get you there till probably March.
So I think the suggestion is that there might be an amendment if the motion maker's open to it, to adjust the...
Well, I think part of the direction is to waive the fees, and the question is, are you asking, you could ask the staff to come back with a fee resolution that lowers the fees that you're asking to waive to zero, which could be done quickly. And then the question is, do you also want them at a later date to come back with an ordinance that formalizes that waiver in the ordinance, which does take longer?
Okay.
Yes. I'm hesitant to just say waive the fees to zero at this point, but I will agree to include that in my motion, as provided it also includes staff to come back with the language for an ordinance to waive the fees.
Okay.
Does that?
I think
that
staff understand.
accomplishes both, but one
yes.
is timely and the other.
Yes.
I want to codify it in the ordinance.
Yes, because you can do a fee. You can do the waiver to zero for a limited period of time that would allow people to come in and apply and not have to pay anything, but the ordinance would then formally waive the fees for a more extended period of time for the project.
Okay. So an ordinance takes, so if I waive it for 30 days, can we accomplish it in that
Well,
amount of time?
I think staff can come back with you with a proposal, because I think if you want to start it in January, 21st is when you want the program.
Yes,
There
that's
is no meeting
correct.
on the 20th, so you'd have to bring it next week if you wanted to start the process.
Right.
Just for the fee resolution. And then we could work on bringing back to the council an ordinance that actually formalizes the waiver.
Okay. So have what I've indicated already accomplished what you are setting out in the ordinance and the timing? The idea, I would like to see an ordinance as soon as possible to match the waiver of the fees. So I agree with waiving the fees to 0 at this time with the ordinance language to come as soon as possible. Do you need a time certain or no? Okay, no time certain.
All right, so the motion's amended. Is that all right with the seconder? Yeah. Okay. Councilman Camus?
Just a clarification, this is for units under 750 square feet.
Yes.
What?
No.
No.
What meets the hardship?
For the hardship
Hardship
exemption.
exemption.
This is the financial
For units that meet the hardship.
Hardship, okay, all right.
financial hardship.
Nice try, though. Anything further? Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Councilor Diep, did you? Oh, that's an old comment. Okay, got it. All right, let's vote.
I'm voting yes. My screen isn't working. Sorry.
Okay. So
That's a yes vote
unanimous.
for me.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. I believe we're now on to open forum. Mr. Soto, would you like to speak?
Mayor, Council. Thank you, Councilman Jimenez, for sponsoring the acknowledgement of 161 citizens of San Jose passing away on the streets last year. I'm on the streets every day, man. I mean, I'm walking around this city. I was born at Valley Med. I got 15 ancestors at Oak Hill Cemetery, and my father picked fruit, the child exploitation that went on in this city in order to build the infrastructure of this city so that you guys can make the decisions that you're making right now. There's the only council member that was present was Jimenez. I mean, that I couldn't believe that. I could not believe that there was absolutely no council member at that acknowledgement that 161 of our fellow citizens died on the street. And it's not just that they died. It was the fact, do you know how slow the process is before the person passes away? I mean, the feelings of neglect, what it does to the mind, what it does to the soul, what it does to the psyche for that human being to sit there and say, you know what, my city and the residents in it, they don't care about me. They care absolutely nothing about my existence or the dignity that I possess as a human being. I went through the entire process of getting the tombstones, placing them on the wood, going over there, then setting it up. And I mean, I cried, man, because that's what this is doing to me as a citizen. I'm being really affected by these policies, man, and I just don't know what to do. I can't believe that the Martin Luther King in Letter from a Birmingham Jail stated that if the law does not square with the moral law, then it has to be challenged. By virtue of our humanity, that law has to be challenged. And I challenge these laws right now that you guys are passing that take no account of what it is that a human being is existentially, man. My time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. All right, the meeting's adjourned.